when is the big crash coming? When is the big crash coming? And then how do we prepare? One member lives on a ranch and would like to know, should she develop it? Another person has farm. Should they focus on farming or dry goods? Because the laws can change and, they can become hostile to food production. They're hostile to energy production. And you would think that would have never happened, and it has happened. And so the next thing on the WEF, World Economic Forum agenda, is trying to disrupt and destroy food production. And I'm telling you, the first thing you got to do is your heart's got to be strong. What does that mean? You're reading the Bible every day. You've got time with God. You've got time in God's Word. You're studying His Word. Not to prepare a sermon, not to go teach somebody else, not to just, throw it out like seeds, but you need to hear God. You need to become more Christ-like. Your heart needs to be shaped and molded into His image and likeness. And so guarding your heart, I think, is the number one preparation. Because I do believe the lockdown is coming again in most of the world. I don't know if all the world. Some places are free. North Dakota was free. Florida's fairly free. Sweden was free. So we'll see how many other countries have woken up to the fact that these policies are at least partially politically driven. Let's see, okay? But I think you do have to prepare for the fact that you're not going to be able to travel to all the places that you want to, at the very least, because they have to create a scare. They have to bring out, the paper ballots, the necessity for them, because it just worked too darn good last time. So they're going to do that. And the chatter, I know that you guys are, very up to date on things. So you know that Alex Jones, he mentioned that very recently. And he said that people are being prepared. And I've heard that myself, they're being prepared to go back to the mask mandates. That's now just like normal news. Universities, some of them, they're very liberal, left-leaning. They're beginning to say you got to wear the mask again. The TSA has been told, the guys that do the security screening at the airport, they've been told to prepare. Mask mandates are going to come back. Well, how do they know that? How do they know this COVID variant called Eris is so deadly, right? So it's just curious timing, isn't it? But that's going to come back. So let's talk a little bit about finances, because I believe the Lord has given me a revelation about this, and I'm just going to cap it, summarize it quickly. So sometimes I say that, and then some people get the answer they want, and other people get more questions than answers, and you just have to go back and study. That's why, you join DiscoverChurch.Online, come and get all the uncensored information, because we can't say most things without getting into some, digital jail. And they love to make that a physical jail, but at least it's a digital one right now. But I've revealed to you that I believe God's shown me how Revelation 6 is unfolding and will unfold. And because of that, I have a very clear timeline that says the red horse is now going to occupy the next chunk of 3.5 years. And the red horse started galloping. And when I look at the color red, and I look on there's the Weather Underground website, which we can put on the screen for those who are watching online. We can put and show you. Maui was the first. This very strange fire that destroyed all of Lahaina. So beautiful place, beautiful island. I spent some time doing a leadership course there, and who would have thought? Very strange things. And I can read to you some of the strange things. But before I do that, I want to show you for the online members how the fire is everywhere. If you look at the Weather Underground map, you see fires all over Washington. Somebody that I met in Oregon told me that he was actually involved back in the 90s in developing a direct energy weapon. So I asked him, I said, is this a real thing or is this a hoax? He said, no, this is absolutely real. There was funding for that. And they were mounting them onto 747s. So I asked him, can they put that in like any old commercial airplane? And he said, well, but that's like classified, and it never got to that point, because then they stopped the funding, they did the research, and then he doesn't know what they did with that information and that research. But I have it confirmed from an engineer that worked on a direct energy weapon, who said back in the 90s, it's real. And the funny thing is, so he said, when there were a series of fires in Idaho, he said there were fires that were equidistant. Equidistant. He says fires don't do that normally. So they're just like spaced out, like zap, 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 zap. That's what he observed. That's what he saw. And it just looks like so many fires on the news. I wake up every morning, there's another fire somewhere. And they're pushing this climate change like the whole world's going to be on fire. When you look on the map, you screen over to Asia. Asia's on fire. Australia is on fire. Look at Australia, how many fires there are in Australia. Then you scroll over to Europe, and you see Europe on fire. And you go down to Africa. And the whole southern Africa, like from the half down, it's on the map, it's just fires everywhere. It looks like the whole world's on fire. Then you scroll over to Latin America. And again, from Brazil down, fires everywhere. I mean, from outer space, it looks like the whole planet is on fire. So does that qualify when now you look at the picture of the red horse? The red horse, what does that represent? Red represents blood, it represents fire. And France was on fire because one Muslim boy who was illegally truck driving and was a criminal with a rap sheet, he was killed at a stop, and the whole place went on fire. Went all the way to Belgium and I think Switzerland and all over the place. But now we have physical fires all over the world. Doesn't that fit the climate change agenda? Doesn't that, then they start the fires, maybe they do, right? And then they say, look, see, climate change is there's an urgent need for action. Well, it fulfills itself. Another thing that is so odd is I remember seeing back in January, I think it was, maybe February, we'll pull up the article, and somebody captured in a blip, it was in less than a second, all these vertical green lines that were sent down from a NASA satellite, something orbiting out of space, they called it a light show, but they're perfectly green, perfectly vertical lines. It goes zip, 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 zip. And somebody happened to have caught that because it was a split-second thing. And guess where that happened? That happened over Hawaii. So there's a lot of questions about this, but in my opinion, this fits the red horse. So until things change and the timeline doesn't work, I'll be first to tell you, but right now, it's working perfectly. So you've got the first play of Corona that's been released. Many people believe that it's engineered. It's not a natural sequence, genetic sequence. Then you've got now the red fiery horse galloping, and the world's on fire. And every day something else is on fire. I saw it this morning, an oil refinery was on fire. They have to shut it down. It's just going to go on and on and on until what? Until it creates a fear, and people are very easily led. They don't want to be responsible. They want to give the government the responsibility. And they'll say, okay, what do we do? Then they'll say, well, we have to stop cooking with gas. We have to stop driving our petrol, gasoline cars. Right? Anything that has to do with fossil fuel, you have to stop flying. But guess what? The political class never stop. They don't stop. You, the second-class citizen, have to stop, but not they. So that's where it seems hypocritical and unfair to people who are still asking questions and thinking, but they don't want us to ask too many questions, right? We know about that. So what do we do? What do we do is the question. Well, my answer is that you're going to have to find out from the Lord, because the answer will be different in each location. I fully believe that we're going to enter a time where we're going to believe for supernatural provision. But that doesn't mean we don't prepare. So if you're in a place where you can grow food, well, it's a great skill to have to be able to grow food. You should learn all the farming skills now. But some of you are not in that kind of a place. Or you are, and they're going to change the laws, and they're going to make it difficult. And they're even going to arrest you because you're producing food. Isn't that strange? What right is it of government to tell you what you can grow or not grow? Do they have a right to tell you when to go to the bathroom? Do they have a right to tell you who you're going to date and marry? They don't have that power, and they don't really have the power to do any of what they're doing now. But because people are afraid, they cede that power. But I think that if you're living in a place that's a bit more hostile, then you're going to have to stock up on some dry food. So canned food, long life food, water, and some of the dry food that lasts, some of them last 20, 30 years. I think it wouldn't hurt to have that. But it all depends on your area. If you're living out in Thailand, well, I know Thailand never runs out of beautiful soil, constant sun, lots of water. Well, then you better be growing your own food over there. Well, I'm not even sure if you need to, because it's just everywhere. It's plenteous everywhere. It's the breadbasket of Southeast Asia. So your answer depends on where you're at. And even in the United States, you've got 50 different states, totally different terrains and climates. You really do need to get it from the Lord. But I'm reviewing a particular book called The Merchants of Death. I'm going to be writing a foreword to it. And two professors, one of them, my good friend Augusto Zimmerman, he's really put together a very good expose on the globalist agenda, and he calls it the oligarchs, all right, the oligarchs. So these are the unelected people who rule together, so not one leader, but a monopoly of people. And the oligarchs have a very clear agenda. They want depopulation. They've been saying that humans are the problem. They haven't been hiding that. And what will kill people? War didn't do it. They are probably behind World War I, World War II, and it didn't kill people enough. So what's a really good weapon to depopulate the world? Disease. And there are professors out there who are willing to make that kind of statement publicly. University of Texas ecologist Eric Pianka said about COVID-19, quote, "May you live in interesting times. We're looking forward to a huge collapse. Disease will control the scourge of humanity. This is really an exciting time. Death. This is what awaits us all, death." So I made a comment, the Great Reset is a culture of death. Christianity is a culture of life. And this has always been the choice since the Garden of Eden. The choice is not left or right, but death or life. That's why God said, "I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I've set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both you and your descendants may live." Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. And Jesus said, "And this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil." They're really celebrating death, aren't they? And that's why they hate God so much. And then I think I've got another good quote from, the World Economic Forum and all of these globalists. They're an outgrowth of the Club of Rome. And the Club of Rome claimed in its 1972 report called Limits to Growth, quote, "With no major change in the physical, economic, or social relationships that have traditionally governed world development, society will run out of the non-renewable resources in 100 years. Well, guess what? It's been 51 years since that statement. And I made a comment, nothing could be further from the truth. We now have more resources, prosperity, and abundance than in 1972. God made the universe with an extravagant amount of air, water, soil, and treasures. We will never run out of water, never run out of oil, never run out of food. It is this central fact that makes the globalists nervous. The fact that free people can live fearless lives leads them to fake it with engineered shortages, engineered bioweapons, and engineered wars. Without unprovoked war and government do-gooders' wasteful spending, most of us will lead peaceful, prosperous lives and enjoy even more resources than we do now. So they are trying very actively to cause an engineered famine, and we need to prepare for that. So food's going to be important. What else is going to be important? I believe that it depends on your area. I think that in certain places, people, want to stock up with gold and silver, and that's up to you. But I've heard it on good advice that it depends on where you live. If you've got the right laws, they're going to change the laws soon. They're going to tax guns and ammunition. In certain places where you live, where it's legal, you might want to stock up on guns and ammunition because that's going to be tradable. I'm not saying you're going to use it to kill somebody, but you might use it to hunt. You might use it to trade. It might be more valuable than money or gold in the future. But again, it depends on where you live and what the Lord says to you. So my timeline again is we've got 3.5 years with the red horse. That means that would take us to 2026. So my short answer for you, without trying to predict a global financial collapse, but I guess it's implied that what I believe is coming is in 2026, we would face that kind of Great Depression level crash. And when you look at the graph of the amount of printing of money, because they always stimulate the economy coming out of war. They believe this kind of cycle, by the way. They operate on this war boom bust cycle. So they don't operate on freedom and property rights and the things that are biblical, the things that we believe because the Bible teaches us to believe those things. But they operate basically, if you look in economic history, the people in charge believe in war, boom, bust. War, boom, bust. So when there's war, everybody forgets about their problems, production ramps up, it's not a real boom. And then when the war finishes, to keep that thing going, keep that bubble going, they print money. So because money is no longer silver and gold, it's just paper. Paper is cheap to print. They're able to do that. And of course that inflates. And then you have a major economic crash, which is caused by the do-gooders, caused by the political class. The Great Depression is not caused by us. It's caused by the people who rule. Then they want to try to say they have the solution for the problems they cause. Pretty hypocritical. So I think that cycle, even though there are people saying Jesus is coming back this September, the Great Depression's coming back, the Great Reset, the digital dollar, I don't know if the digital dollar will start to appear before, but I believe the big crash, the one that will exceed the Great Depression, is still delayed to 2026. Not really delayed, it's delayed because we believe the wrong thing. But if you believe the timeline that I feel that the Lord has confirmed and shown to us in Revelation chapter 6, then we've got 2.5 years to prepare for one of the most devastating global recessions, depressions, famine, whatever you want to call it. So you need to prepare for that. And we do have some time to prepare. So that's why I'm sounding the alarm. And I'm reviewing this book, The Merchants of Death. In Australia, they're making a misinformation bill. I don't know how long this kind of book can last. So I want to try to get it out, promote it, tell you about it. But it's a really good read, very, very interesting read. The last one, I guess the last question that I didn't cover is the USA, where are we in this? Okay, so when's the crash coming? I don't think this September. I think, any dip can happen, but I think the big one is 2026. COVID, yeah, Eris is here already. Eris is the new strain related to Omicron, and they named it Eris after the god of chaos and strife. So that tells you they really want this one to work this time. Ukraine's going to keep getting disrupted because Ukraine is a food producer, and that's what they're really going after. Ukraine is kind of expendable to them. The USA, are we the bad guy? Are we the bad guy? Well, if you read the book, The Merchants of Death, unfortunately, one of the greatest Christian nations on earth, a nation that I really love, has been, the source of a lot of these globalist controlling agenda. And America seems to be leading the way. I don't think it's going to change with Biden. When Trump comes back, things can change fast. All right, so that's probably why we get an extension, that it doesn't come. The whole collapse doesn't come yet. But he's going to come in, and I don't know if you know this about economic history in America. But unfortunately, when Democrats are in power, usually they're boom years, and when Republicans are in power, you get recessions. It's counterintuitive, but I don't know why that is, whether they just don't want it to happen. I think Trump did do a lot of good last time. There certainly wasn't this kind of inflation, and a lot of good policies, energy independence. So he could kind of buck the trend, all right? But the trend has been historically that you expect these recessions to come during Republican administrations, even while they're lowering taxes and all that. So that may be why 2026, when Trump is back in, something happens during his administration, and that maybe they make him the fall guy for it. So back to, is the USA the bad guy? I don't think we have to be the bad guy. I don't think we have to be the bad guy. I think that we are the light of the world, the salt of the earth. And if we as Christian leaders, I'm speaking specifically, inviting Christian leaders to discuss with your churches these end time issues and these justice issues. You know, they've really stolen the term from us. Biblical justice is our topic, but they stole it, and now they talk, ad nauseum about social justice, economic justice, racial justice. Well, they don't have the answer to any of this. They are unjust themselves. God is just. We as Christian leaders should be just. And I'm inviting you to speak to your congregation about it, or if you're not comfortable or want someone else to do it, I am available. I'd love to come, and I will speak and bring blessing and impartation to your church. So, we want to see America take advantage of the next 2.5 years. I really think our time's limited. I really think we've got a limited amount of time to take heed now and not sleep. We need to wake up and be the church that we're supposed to be. We are light. And if you're light, you're going to be in spiritual warfare. You're going to have flies and bugs and all sorts of insects come, but you are greater. Greater is the light in you than the darkness that's in the world.